Hey there, Agile Adventurer. Just a quick question. What if, for the price of a fancy coffee or half a pizza, you could unlock over 700 hours of the best Agile content on the planet? That's audio, video, e-courses, books, presentations, all that you can think of. But you can also join live calls with world-class practitioners and hang out in a flame war-free and AI slop-clean Slack with the sharpest minds in the game. Oh, and yes, you get direct access to me, Vasco, your Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. No, this is not a drill. It's the Scrum Master Toolbox membership. And it's your unfair advantage in the Agile world. So if you want to know more, go check out scrummastertoolbox.org/membership. That's scrummastertoolbox.org/membership. And check out all the goodies we have for you. Do it now. But if you're not doing it now, let's listen to the podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our TGIF Friday and Product Owner episode this week with Joelle Tegwen. Hey, Joelle, welcome back.
Hey, Vasco. Well, happy Friday.
Happy Friday indeed. That's well said. Happy Friday, everybody. So Friday is Product Owner episode here on the podcast, and we'll talk about what great product owners act and think like in a minute. But before we go there, share with us, Joelle, what might have been potentially the worst product owner anti-pattern you've witnessed in your career.
I think the worst product owner anti-pattern I see is a BA who got a role change, a title change, and now they're a product owner. Except they don't know how to be a product owner. They don't know really what's involved in being a product owner. And they're just kind of given this new, sometimes the organization doesn't even really allow them to step into a true product ownership role. It's just a title change to them, as opposed to actually stepping into that that ownership piece of it.
Yeah, and well, one of the things that I'm reminded of when you say a BA that becomes a product owner, I've also seen other roles that become a product owner, right? Like, because, if you adopt Scrum, quote unquote, then you need to have a product owner. And then some people are just named product owners without ever being trained or understanding that. But what are some of the concrete specific behaviors that you see in that kind of transition from having a business analyst role, which has this specific focus and specific task orientation, to being a product owner role, which is significantly different? There are some things that overlap for sure, but it's also significantly different. What do you see are the common behaviors that business analysts bring with them to the product owner role that don't serve them well anymore in the product owner role?
So one of the biggest ones is that they really see themselves as a scribe and not a visionary. They see themselves as, their job is to manage Jira and write as I want to so that stories. And they think that's like the essence of their job is managing Jira or Rally or whatever your tool is, as opposed to setting a vision for where they want the product to go and understanding the customer and understanding the metrics that they need to in order to prioritize the work. They'll sometimes prioritize it just by a gut check, not actually going out and gathering the data and the customer sentiment. Sometimes they don't have those kinds of skills. They're not thinking about as much like here's the problem that we're trying to solve. Here's the North Star we're going towards. They're used to somebody else setting that for them and telling them instead of them crafting that vision and figuring out where that the team should go.
Yeah, so it's almost like they are trying to replicate the business analyst role within the product owner role, and then they forget or perhaps aren't even trained or don't know about these other accountabilities for the product owner role, like setting the vision, defining the problems to solve, even defining, of course, the customers that we want to serve, and so on.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
When you think about
it's so easy to fall into, it's easy for them to fall into that habit, because that's what they've been doing for, that's a strong muscle for them. And so it's, when you're in this new space, it's easy and natural to fall back on what's comfortable, especially if you're not so certain about what you're supposed to be doing. Because like you said, often they're not even trained.
Yeah. And when you think about people that you've worked with in this position, then what have you learned about being able to help them to get beyond that and actually start perhaps understanding better and ultimately acting more like a PO?
So one of the things, there's a few tools I've got. One of them is to give them a format when they think about their epics and features, that's starting with a hypothesis statement. So what's the problem that you're trying to solve, and what's your hypothesis about how you're going to try to solve that? And what metrics are you going to use to know whether or not you solved it? How do you know if you're on or off track? And sometimes, so they get this very kind of canned format of the user story, but if you can get them up out of the weeds and give them a little structure at that higher level, it can start helping them shift their way of thinking about it and shifting how they their understanding about it, that their job is up higher up the chain. And I don't think, like, Scrum doesn't have, or even like much of the culture around Scrum, they focus a lot at the story level when they're talking about it out in industry, instead of talking about those higher, bigger levels. So when I can bring their vision, when I can bring their mind up, that their epics or features aren't like just one-line sentences or a laundry list of, teams that they need to deal with, but instead getting them to step back. I find that really helps. That really helps them.
Absolutely. And I really like that practical idea of starting with some templates that helps them to think about different questions, because we need to make it very practical, especially if they haven't had any training, because you can't easily replicate the 2-day training in a couple of hours of coaching and interaction, right? So starting with a concrete tool can really help to get that process of thinking differently moving forward. But of course, there are some great product owners out there as well, Joelle. So share with us the best, potentially, product owner you've ever worked with. How did they work?
So this was a Scrum Master that I was this was a product owner that I was working with at a medical company, and they were at a healthcare company, and he was really trying to set a team into a new way. He understood that vision piece of it. He understood the need to experiment and how to let that the team needed to figure out how to solve the problem. He really had all of that so deeply ingrained in how he approached everything about what he did. He happened to be a big fan of the Large Scale Scrum format, which talks a lot about those kinds of things. That was a really good fit for him. And so we had this team of very skilled people who hadn't been working in this way, and helped guide them. It's like, okay, here's what we're trying to accomplish. Let's figure out what we need to do in order to get there. And he had patience in letting them get to the next level, and if he was frustrated, he'd vent that to me, not to them. He really kept that frustration when they weren't going the way he wanted them to, we collaborated together on it instead of him expressing that to the team as they were working through how to operate in this new way, learning new technical skills, learning how to work on a cross-functional collaborative team. He really had all of those pieces down. He knew what the customer value was that he was driving towards, and he talked about that in every single sprint review. Here's where we're trying to go. Here's our North Star. Here's the progress that we made, and let's talk about where we think we should go next.
And that ability to embody the vision and also to be patient with the team coming towards that vision. I think it's so valuable because it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Like, because when you know the vision, that's a very important piece of the product owner role, but it can feel very frustrating and demotivating when the others don't see the vision. So it's not enough to be a visionary. You also need to be patient in communicating and repeating and repeating and repeating that vision, because not everybody gets there at the same time, right?
Yes. And also if they're used to, being heads down and being told what to do and, being, handed these little bits of work and not thinking about the vision, that's a really big shift for the team they also need to lift their head up and start looking at that North Star. And that's a whole new way of thinking about their world. And it's not an easy transition for them, just like it's not an easy transition for a product owner who's, a retitled BA.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that was a great story, Joelle. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. We're getting close to the end, but before we go, where can people find out more about you and the work that you're doing?
The best place to find me is on LinkedIn.
All right.
I don't do the other social media platforms.
Absolutely. We'll put the link on the show notes so that all of you can go and ask a follow-up question, interact with Joelle, maybe share your story and share the parts of the episodes we did this week that most helped you. Why not? We learn as a community, and therefore it's great to share what we learn from each other. Joelle, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for your generosity with your time and your knowledge.
Thank you so much for having me, Bosco. It's an honor.
All right, I hope you liked this episode. But before you hit next episode, here's the deal. This podcast is powered by people like you, the members who wanted more than just inspiration. They wanted real tools and real connection to people who are practicing Agile every day. We're talking access to over 700 hours of Agile Gold, CTO level strategy talks, summit keynotes, live workshops, e-courses, deep dive interviews, books, and if you're into No Estimates, we got the pioneers of No Estimates in those deep dive interviews as well. Agile business intelligence, creating product visions, coaching your product owner courses, you name it. You'll get invites to monthly live Q&As with Agile pioneers and practitioners, plus a private Slack community, which is free of all of that AI slop you see everywhere, and of course, without the flame wars. It's a community of practitioners that want to learn and thrive together. It's the best place to connect with community and learn together. So if this podcast has helped you before, imagine what you will get from this podcast membership. So head on over to scrummastertoolbox.org/membership and join the community that's shaping the future of Agile. And we have so much for you. So check out all the details at scrummastertoolbox.org/membership, because listening is great, it's important, but doing it together, that's next level. I'll see you in the community Slack.
We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.